We have some tremendous panelists for you tonight. But really just want to share with you really quickly, the Colorado Institute for Social Impact is here to provide educational opportunities. We want to make sure that the community is comfortable engaging this part of our economy. It's a quickly growing part of our economy. And so we want to make sure that folks know how to shop and where to shop and how to support these types of businesses and these types of leaders. We've got some great folks today. So thank you all for joining us. And without further ado, I'm going to let our folks go ahead and just introduce themselves. If you'll tell us your name and the name of the company that you're here with today, and then we'll get started with some questions. So Eddie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Eddie McDonald, here with AGL, Apex Generation Leadership.
Jake Ironman, here with Mountain Equipment Recyclers.
I'm Steve Peterschmidt, the founder of Porch Light.
And I'm Jonathan Liebert. I'm with the Colorado Institute for Social Impact, but today representing BBB, Better Business Bureau, as a social business.
So Jonathan, if you'll go ahead and kick us off and just tell us a little bit about the definition of a social business as the Institute has kind of put it forward, and why is the Better Business Bureau considered a social business?
Absolutely. Well, we're just kind of having a talk about just kind of a framework and about, using, the vocabulary and the lexicon. It's important. One of the things that Stacy and I kind of found out as we go and talk in a room with people and starting the conversation about this, and we didn't have like the same definition of what this was. And so as you think about social impact businesses, and we use that term to kind of broadly define the sector, a social business is one of the pieces within that. And a social business is a business that has a commercial goal of making money, but equally as important, it has a goal of giving back or providing some other kind of social or environmental benefit. So they're both equally as important. So it's about purpose and profit together. And there's some really great examples that you'll hear from today, but the example for BBB is we're a social business because of the model that we have. So BBB is it's a not-for-profit organization. We're a 501c6. And our mission is to create marketplace trust. And our mission is to give all of you consumers access to our website. We're basically a website company, but we want to give you access to that so that you can go there and find a local person that you can buy from, that you can trust. And our goal is to be objective and to give information out there, and for you consumers to give us feedback so we can keep putting that information out there. So because I'm a nonprofit, typically a nonprofit will pay for that in a couple different ways. It could be fundraising, it could be donations, it could be grants. And that's not how we pay for that model. So we're a business. So we go out there and we sell products. We sell accreditation. It's where we go in and vet a business, and we look at all of their practices to tell consumers they've kind of gone through our standards, you can trust them. So we sell different things to pay for our mission. And in the end, our return back to the community is, as I said, it's that free resource that everybody has. But we use a business model to pay for that, but it fulfills our nonprofit mission of creating trust in the community. So that's our example.
Thanks, Jonathan. Jake, we're jumping to you next.
Yeah.
Can you please tell us how you've maintained that social impact focus over several years of your business being around in our community?
Yeah, you bet. First of all, I just want to thank Jonathan, Stacy, Mickey, and the crew for hosting these events. These are a ton of fun. So thank you guys very Also appreciate what they're doing in the community for social impact. The CI4SI, just a great institute and tons of momentum behind them. So they've really got a lot of energy, and they're really bringing groups and partners and folks like us together. So hopefully you guys are able to take something from us today. So, but as far as MER, so Mountain Equipment Recyclers, we're a new and used outdoor gear store located downtown Colorado Springs. Started about 8 years ago by Mike Mazzola. From day one, he instituted the focus for us to focus on social impact. He incorporated gear, outdoor gear, selling of that gear with partnering with 3 nonprofits at that time, military focused. He didn't serve, but he wanted to give back. This was, post recession, 2010. So from day one, it was really important and key to him to have that focus for us to give back in some way. Back then, there wasn't any lingo, buzzwords, social impact, social business, any of that. To him, it just truly felt like the right thing to do. It was just the right thing to do. He had an opportunity to give, had a heart to do that as well. now fast forward 8 years, turns out it's actually pretty good business practice too. We've been profitable, we've been successful. We've partnered with another local nonprofit, Kids on Bikes, and the Pedal Station, a social impact business as well. And we've together grown into just a great piece of the community. But all that really started with the initial focus of incorporating those nonprofits into who we are as a business. Very important that we are focused on making money, paying our employees, paying the bills. However, we do have that piece that we can work with local groups and nonprofits and give something back. So.
Can you take just a couple seconds and talk about the business model of MER?
Yeah,
and
be
tell us
happy
what
to.
that is?
Yeah. So the business model MER, we are set up in the spectrum of the social arena is we're a social business. So we are quote unquote for profit. We're owned by a nonprofit foundation out of Denver called the Beanstalk Foundation. So we are a C Corp inside of that nonprofit foundation. And so how we're set up, basically, people can bring items in so as a consignment, so you could be a consignment customer, or you can donate. So what we do for the items that are donated, 50% of that sale of the item that gets donated goes directly to the partner nonprofit. So when you come in as a customer, we've got a menu of over 24 local nonprofits that you can say, hey, that Trails Advocacy Group resonates with me, or that youth serving agency resonates with me. You can donate a backpack, a tent, sleeping bag into their nonprofit account, which is basically a consignment account. And when it sells, the money gets split automatically. They receive a check. I send out checks once a month, and a check goes right to that nonprofit. And so they're basically just a consignor of ours, but we're very intentional about reaching out and partnering with those different groups. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right. Steve from Porchlight, please tell us about your social business model.
All right. So Porchlight is an app that makes it easy to stay. It's an app that makes it easy to know how the important people in your life are doing, not just what, so that you can be there for each other when it matters. The social impact side of our business really focuses around three key areas: our financial model, the way that we deal with data, and then a non-for-profit arm. And on the financial side, it's really all about transparency. In today's world, there's a lot of social media companies that are really data collection organizations that really use the front end of their social media brand as just a way to collect information. So what we do is we're upfront about who our customer really is, and our users are our customers. And then the way that we monetize it is a nominal subscription fee. And again, it's understanding that we're providing value for money. And so there's no confusion with our consumers about who our loyalty is. Our job is to create a great experience and this personal connection between people and make it easy. And the second aspect is, data and handling. So we collect data. The data we collect is personal. It's really important for us to maintain the trust of the people that we're inviting onto our platform and the promise that we're making that we're allowing that connection. Connecting people personally requires a different set of muscles than today's social media has. It requires trust, there's an intimacy, and then there's an ease that has to be developed and produced for the users to make it valuable. So the way that we handle data today is that it's only used for the purpose of the people that are generating it and the connections that they choose to make with people. There's a second use for the data that we have that really comes into more social value for the communities. And with that data, we de-identify it. And what de-identifying means is just the same way that hospitals and medical communities use data today. They'll use the data for the purpose of understanding disease, understanding care, but they strip out anything that can identify it with a specific person. So what we're trying to do there is really be purposeful in the way that we create a service for people, and then also try to find other ways to liberate that data so that the community can understand it and use it better. The last aspect is a non-for-profit arm. So the for-profit side of our company has to do with creating revenue and creating a great experience. But we also understand that not everybody in the community has access to a smartphone, and that $1 a month subscription fee is not trivial to some people. So the at-risk communities, the people that don't have the resources to get and stay connected, can't be left behind in this. So our non-for-profit arm is going to be funded by the for-profit side, and then that allows us to, again, give back to the community, both locally and with national programs.
And Steve, could you give us just a quick example of, say, how a college student would interact with your product?
Yeah, so I've been using this with my family for a year. I know I'm like the worst example because it's my company, but it really came out of necessity. And so what happens is with the app, you check in every day, and the app prompts you to check in. It's just a little emoji driven, like what's my outlook on the day and what are the things that are driving it. And then the people that you've invited to share your connection with, they get that. And we call that the checkup process. So I'm connected to my, kids, one kid that lives in Denver, one that lives in Arizona, my family in New Mexico. And the way it looks for them is, they do that same check-in process. And that little micro exchange of information about how we're doing lets us understand, do I need to reach out to them and say, hey, you're excited about a test you just did, or do I need to give them a call and say, hey, what's got you down about work? And so in these really quick exchanges, we stay in each other's lives, and we don't let how busy we are, how far apart we are, cause us to drift apart.
Awesome, thank you. And Edward, if you could tell us a little bit about AGL's social business model.
Yeah. So I would imagine most of you know millennials. Lots of chuckles, right? Always are. AGL really became what it is because we wanted to take the impact of life coaching, we're all certified life coaches in our company, and provide it to the demographic that we think needs it the most. Executive life coaching has been around since the 90s for executives, making leaders out of them. But we've seen firsthand with hundreds of clients what happens when you make a 20-year-old a leader. They go from being on the couch and playing video games to working for NASA, starting businesses, having jobs, having cars, living life. We've seen it. I've experienced it. I went from being almost a high school dropout to getting a bachelor's degree in 2 years because of life coaching. It changes lives. And we wanted to find a way to make that accessible to every young adult, because I want to live in that world where every young adult is a leader. And I've seen the impact of it. So how do you do it? It's not easy because millennials can't usually afford executive-style life coaching. So we built a business model that allows employers to sponsor millennials in their company, or companies to sponsor millennials in their community. So if you, let's say, the BBB wanted to sponsor Bobby and Sue. Bobby and Sue hop on Facebook after a coaching session and say, I just had the greatest life coaching session. I learned this about myself. It's changing my life. BBB, you rock. Thank you. Hashtag BBB rocks. Put it on Facebook. We post it. They post it. You post it. You get organic marketing. They get a life changed. Or companies can sponsor their employees. And that's a problem because retention is not good with millennial employees. I think it's the future Mount Vesuvius of the implement world, frankly. We're looking at the problem and saying, oh, it's just some smoke, we're fine. It's not fine. In 7 years, millennials are the largest part of the workforce. They don't stay in a job longer than 2 years. And I don't know about you, but I think it takes more than 2 years to get good at something. So what happens when they leave and go to your competition? But you can solve that retention problem by helping them figure out what they want and helping them get a purpose for life. So purpose, passion, and success is what life coaching is all about, and is what we're doing at AGL. We're structured as a S-Corp, but a big part of what we do is giving back, because we want to live in a world where every young person is a leader.
So Edward, you're an S-Corp. Jake, you guys are a C-Corp. Steve, what are you
We're
guys?
just incorporated.
Okay. and then the BBB is a 501c6. So you can see a large range of legal entities represented in this sector as well, so, or in this category. I wanted to open it up. Are there folks that have developed any questions that are in our live audience today? If I could ask you to come up to the mic for the live stream folks so they can hear you. Thank you. And go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't mind.
My name's Lou Valencia. It's amazing to see all of you here today. Thank you all for having us. This is extremely invigorating. And my main question is, how do you see, with the social impact being the ultimate intention, how much less of the hurdle of money has it been? Have you noticed from, businesses sponsoring, young professionals to be leaders, or in any of your other fields? Have you noticed like that the social impact piece reduces that hurdle, the money hurdle, more significantly? Does that make sense?
Money as in revenue or
Like the
funding?
investment to do something as far as sponsoring young professionals to retain them within the company, or any of your other businesses, consulting.
To clarify, are you talking startup costs or like how successful business can be financially over time?
I would say how the business can be successful over time, because of the initial barrier biggest barrier that I see is probably the money piece, as far as, investing into the money and the value for sure. But the value is ultimately there usually for a social impact business, from what I can understand. And but have you noticed significantly?
So I'll jump in real quick. I didn't hear anybody up here, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, say that, they were purposefully starting a social impact business. They just felt like that was the right thing to do for running their business. And so, like, for me personally, I wanted to have that social impact. I felt like that was a part of my responsibility, and that can actually be a value proposition that I can bring to the table, because I think there's more awareness of that today. But from the financial side, I feel like it was just neutral. I didn't spend any extra money to do that, but I didn't feel like it really saved me any money. I feel like it's just the right thing to do, and I have a long vision on the way I want this company to run, and treating people right from the beginning and have that baked into your model is the way to do that over time.
Thank you for sharing.
And I would also add too that you ask a really good question in terms of where is this? I mean, and does it make you more money? Does it cost you more money? How does this work? I mean, there is some research out there that would suggest, and these are the bigger kind of social impact businesses, that it can actually make you some more money, right? And we were talking earlier about, surprise, surprise, if you treat your employees well, if you treat your community well, your supply chain well, you're environmentally responsible, and you're creating value, you're going to make more money, right? Probably a longer term investment, right? But I think the other piece to that is that we're kind of at the crossroads right now of this change in this thinking of business, but also this change in thinking of, how do I invest in this? How do I give or donate money? But even as a consumer, I'm going to go look and search for this. So I think there's still some things kind of yet to be written on this. I mean, I think we're starting to see some of these trends where investors are looking to invest, where donors want to donate, not just to a traditional charity, but they want to invest in a social enterprise nonprofit, perhaps, because they want to look different. Or we've even talked to people that have said, I don't know what it is, but, I just want to invest in a business that gives back to the community. I want to invest, and they don't even know anything about this. And so, but I think there's just this natural thing that's kind of out there where people are starting to think more about this, and they're more conscious about what it is. Some people know what it is, they know what to look for. Some people don't know what it is at all. You heard already, some people are just like, well, it's just the right thing to do. And then come to find out, oh, there's a whole kind of strategy to this, and there's a whole field, and this could change the way business is done and evolve capitalism. Well, that's cool. Sign me up. But we got a lot of work to do still.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
I would say for us down at MER, probably 85 to 90% of the people that walk through the front door have no idea what a social business is, have no idea that we are a social business. So we have to run and operate as a full-fledged money-making entity that can be self-supported outside of this great designation of being a social business. So, so there very much is a bottom line that still needs to be met outside of the good feeling and the good actual nature that we're actually accomplishing on a day-to-day with the donated items and donating back to those nonprofits. So we still have to operate in a very healthy manner, so.
I got nothing to add. I think they nailed it. I loved what you said about, it wasn't so much, hey, how do I make this a social business? It was just, this is the right thing to do. There's a lot of ways you can coach people. There's a lot of companies doing coaching. But we came to Colorado Springs for a reason, and we have the highest teen suicide rate in this city, in the country. The solution to that isn't counseling when they're suicidal. It's giving them purpose before they're suicidal. It's connection. It's purpose. It's the right thing to do. When you know here that it's the right thing to do, you find a way to do it, and the business flows out of that. I didn't say, I want to build a social business, how can I do that, and then stumbled into coaching. I said, I want to coach, how can I do that, and stumbled into social business.
Love that. Thank you all for sharing.
Thanks.
Those are amazing answers. Can I ask one more?
Sure.
What do you think are the biggest differences with somebody that's wanting to come into having like a SROI and making their, so pretty much going into the saying, I'm going to make a business entity focused specifically around SROI, of course, pay for costs and, pay for your volunteers, things like that, rather than somebody that already has a business in a sense and is a little bit more on the profit-driven side rather than somebody that is just mainly focused on covering cost and scaling SROI.
I think there's a couple things with that. I mean, and again, I think you hit the nail on the head too, where it's a little bit different in terms of the business model. You know, from a traditional business model, you kind of go, you do your market research, and you kind of look at all these different, factors and things, and look at that. From a social entrepreneur standpoint, it's what's kind of that social issue that's out there that I'm trying to solve, or what I want to get into, and how do I want to solve it. Then the business model kind of comes second. So I think it's like, you got to flip those things around, and again, kind of be purposeful about, how you go about doing that. And I think that's an important piece where folks really got to kind of pay attention to, because again, it's when you're starting one up, I mean, that's the thing. If you have an existing business, and because this is, we talk to a lot of people in this community that have said, two categories. One is, I got a regular business, how to make it a social impact business, or I've got a business and I've been doing philanthropy on the side. And there's a lot of people doing this. And what's really interesting that we're finding is that when we talk about this stuff, people kind of go, oh, I didn't know you could do both. I thought they had to be separate. And that's the first kind of aha moment for a lot of people of just like, well, wait a second, this changes everything. Well, you're telling me that I don't have to do these two separate things and I have to separate them out? It's like, no, you don't. You can be an entrepreneur and be passionate about a mission and have a higher purpose. That's actually a really good thing. There's different strategies for each one, though, and I think that's what's important about having these conversations is that, one, that's why we created the Institute, to teach about this, but also, two, to bring you subject matter experts that have gone through the School of Hard Knocks, because each one of those is just a little bit different. So I think what's important is making sure people realize that, one, you can do this, and then two, depending on how you want to do it, there's no right or wrong way necessarily, but, there's great resources in our community. We've got wonderful people here that will help. And so to be able to ask those questions of, hey, I've already got a business, how do I do this? Or I've got this thing over here on the side, how do I incorporate this? Or I want to start one from scratch. Or I've got a nonprofit, how do I add more business to this? These are all the different questions that this community is asking. And, again, this is why we're here tonight, is to kind of start the education process of helping to figure that out.
The only thing I'd add is that, again, another common theme you'll hear from everybody up here is that running a good business is still at the heart of running a good social impact business. And that, like I ran I had another previous startup in the healthcare services space, and the conversations I had with our clinical staff all the time was about, my job is not only to put them in a position to succeed and take great care of people, but I have to run a very efficient business so that I can create stability that puts them in that position to succeed. And so running a really well managed business, purposeful business, is really important to running, in my opinion, running a good social impact business as well.
Totally agree. I'll add something just really quickly, but Stacy and I made an interesting marketing mistake when we were running a social enterprise. It was a food service operation, a cafe, Aspen Point, still around. We started going out into the community and we started to tell people, hey, we went mission first. Here's our social impact, here's our social return on investment, we're putting people with disabilities back to work, this is awesome. Oh yeah, here's the food, and it's good too, and nobody bought it. And it was just like, oh man, that's a bummer. Like, what are we doing wrong? So we flipped it, and then it was exactly what you described as, we've got some of the best food in town. We got phenomenal pricing. This is what our chef is doing. We've got our food costs under control, right? Because you got to run the business first. And oh, by the way, we're a social enterprise. And sometimes people will say, well, what's a social enterprise? Sometimes they wouldn't. But then here's what was weird is that when we led with the business first, and then they found out about the mission, that was the first thing they told all their friends. And it was just a weird thing. We couldn't do that. But as soon as they were like, oh, God, you got to go to this cafe. They're putting people back to work. They're putting the homeless back to work. They got vets in there. Well, what kind of food do they have? Well, don't worry about the food. It's awesome. Just go there. Just support them because it's so cool. And it was just the weirdest thing. So that's one of those pieces where you are competing with businesses. You absolutely are first. Mission's in there. But then what's weird is that that's what goes out into the community afterwards. But we learned, it's like, well, we can't do that. Somebody else has to tell that part of the story. So it was an interesting lesson that we learned about marketing.
And at that point, the mission almost seals that customer and keeps them for life. We see that all the time because we'll finish the transaction, they have a great experience in the store, and then at that point they'll look up and see our chalkboard of 24 different nonprofits. And we got about 20 seconds. They're signing credit cards, they're twiddling their thumbs. What's that up there? So, oh, that's our chalkboard. Those are all the groups that we work with. What do you mean you work with groups? And that's our moment where we explain this is truly who we are. We started with great service. We started with giving a free cup of coffee, free tea, really give them a true, gear experience, get them set up with skis, whatever it might be. And so it looks like any gear shop you would go to in town, but we finish with that mission of, oh, you guys have given over $300,000 back to the community? Well, yeah, that's a big part of who we are. We've got a customer for life then, Awesome. So to finish, it's one of the guys that we work, Ted Stolberg, he always says, no money, no mission. So you can have the best intent, it's true though, it just stands alone. So yeah.
Again, nothing other than, so there's a great quote from Martin Luther. He said, a Christian cobbler does not live out his faith by putting crosses on his shoes. He lives out his faith by making good shoes. And I think that concept applies here, regardless of what your faith is. You got to deliver quality. Be good at business. The other thing I think is belief in what you're doing. If you believe that you can fix the problem, know the money will come. If you can see a problem in the world and say, I can fix that problem, other people have seen the problem too. You're not the only person, I guarantee you. There's 8 billion people in this world. They've seen the problem too. If you can fix it, there's money out there for it. So see the problem, believe you can fix it, build a good business model around it, do the business model well, and trust that it'll work. It can't not at that point. All businesses that that exist today exist because they saw a problem and they found a solution for it. Even Kleenex, right?
Lou, thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you
for your time and your insight and what you do for the community.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So a question for all of our panelists. If you'll just tell us, and some of you have touched on this already, but why do you think it's important for a business to have a social impact as part of what they do?
Okay. I think social impact is the integration of business. We talk about integration a lot in coaching, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, but you see nonprofit and for-profit, and it's kind of like no one looked at macroeconomics and said, well, the money has to go from here to over here, and you're just shuffling money. No one, seriously. Social business is saying, I believe that the model works, so capitalism works, and we can make money and impact the community at the same time. We were talking earlier about millennials and their giving habits, down 50% from what you were saying as a generation. Nonprofits aren't going to be around 50 years from now at that rate. No one's going to fund them. But millennials love buying stuff from companies who do good things. BioLite, I love BioLite stoves. REI sells them. You guys may sell them. I love their stoves.
We will this spring, yes. Spring 19.
Nice.
Nice.
Super.
So buy them from him. Great stove. They wanted to solve smoke inhalation deaths worldwide, so they sat down, designed a stove that would do it, that had a thermal generator in it. So as it's making fire, it's making energy, which is making a fan, which blows the fire. Genius stove. And then they scaled it down and sold it to backpackers. I love the stove. It's a great design. I can charge my headlamp while I cook food. That's a great idea that works. It's a holistic model. And they don't have to say, you know what, I want to solve smoke inhalation deaths. I'm going to make a stove, sell it to backpackers, and then give 10% of that to some foundation that solves smoke inhalation deaths. They're saying, no, we're going to actually do the thing. And honestly, then very soon, I think, you're going to see for every for-profit business model out there, there's going to be a social impact business that competes with them. And where are people going to shop then? So I really do think it's the integration of business. You got to figure out how to make your business a holistic model that impacts everyone cohesively in a positive way. Otherwise, you won't have a business. That's what I think. It's just practical. It's also the right thing to do, but that's the
Yeah.
cop-out answer.
Anybody else?
Yeah, for us, I would say on the social impact side, I would say it's definitely an opportunity. For us, it's an opportunity to partner with like-minded nonprofits. And so for us, it works well to partner with those nonprofits in a couple ways. One, we have the opportunity to champion their cause. You know, if we're in the shop all day doing the hard work, selling skis. I know it's hard work, but we can now champion and partner with maybe Rocky Mountain Field Institute, who's out there working on the trails. You know, same with Kids on Bikes. We're in there selling bikes. They're out there teaching the camps. And so there's a really great opportunity there for certain businesses, you know, to partner with a nonprofit entity, in essence, to share that might have a shared community, like interests. What it looks like for us, we partner with different groups we have different sale days where we'll reach out to groups, have them into the shop, give them an opportunity and a voice to be able to tell people about their programs and things that are going on in the community. And so, yeah, so it's really a great chance, you know, for us to kind of cross-market ourselves with the nonprofit, ourselves to that nonprofit community that maybe we don't normally have a reach to a new clientele, a new group. And again, from our example, you know, we're able to reach out and get donations in from all these different groups and different people that hopefully can end up in their accounts and make them a couple dollars. So.
And from my perspective, the importance of social impact businesses are that nobody is an island. Like every company has touch points into the rest of the community, into the rest of the world. And if you're, my personal belief, if you're running a business that is there looking to find leverage over people and squeeze every penny out of every relationship for people, that ultimately that's an unhealthy relationship for somebody. And I think social impact companies are the best of all worlds because they really start from the way that they're founded with the idea that there's some cooperation here and I'm trying to do good as much as I'm trying to make money. And I feel like, you know, that's one of those situations that makes everybody better.
So I think we have to ask ourselves to answer the question with another question, but this will make sense, so bear with me. You know, Simon Sinek, I think, had it best in the sense of, you know, you got to start with the why. And so for this case, to answer this question, I think it's, well, what's the why of business? And when I ask people that question, most of the time people will say, oh, that's easy. The why of business is to make money. And that's what we believe in our country, right? And that's where I think we've got it wrong because I don't think that is. It's not the why. Making money is important, don't get me wrong. No money, no mission, right, Jake? So you got to do that. But making a profit is an outcome, right? That's an outcome of doing something else. And everybody up here just said it. The why of business is to solve problems. It's to build communities. It's to build cities. It's to create inventions. It's to create technology and innovations in healthcare and all these different things, right, to make life better. That's the why of business. You just happen to make money if you do a really good job and do it ethically and honestly, right? And then you reinvest that money back into the business, back into your community. That's the point of this. And so I think that we've seen this happen too, is that, you know, profit for profit's sake can be a very dangerous thing. And that can have these consequences that are not necessarily good or healthy things. And so I think that this is kind of the natural equilibrium between what this is, because at the end of the day, making profit, but also having a higher purpose to what you do and the why of why you do it, because let's all be honest with ourselves, right? If it was just about making money, that every single one of us would go find a job where we made the most money and we'd be happy at that. But how many of us have worked at a job that we didn't like, but we were getting paid really, really good money, and you'd stuck it out as long as you could, but in the end, you're like, I can't do this anymore. This, right? We've all been there. It sucks, right? And so if money was that answer, then that would be the reason of why. But there's a different why for every single one of us, and usually it has to do with some form of higher purpose, some other value that we bring and something that we believe. That's the why of business. And so I think that's why this is important, is because we're kind of reconnecting. I think we forgot this for a while. It's always been there, but it's a matter of let's bring it back together. So yes, go make money, be profitable, but also go and bring the purpose back in, because those two things together are a powerful thing. There are some economists that believe that as we kind of get to right now we're in kind of the economic age of data. We're in the data-driven economy, right? And we've got data coming out of everywhere, right? And this is awesome, right? But what do you do with it? Data means nothing if it's not applied to something, if it's not applied to something that has this higher kind of value to it, right? So there are some people that think that as the end of this economic era comes and the data age is kind of done, that we're going to move into another one. What this is debatable. But there's a lot of people that believe that we are approaching the age where the economy will be based on purpose and having a higher purpose, which means, as everybody described, you can go there and you can invest your money in a company that just makes profits, or you can go to somebody who makes the same kind of product or something else that's making profits and they're creating and solving social issues. Why wouldn't you buy from the second company? I mean, it's kind of that no-brainer. So if you're building this economy based on this purpose and these values and everything else that we kind of all believe in, well, isn't that a win-win-win for everybody? And it is. And so that's where I think all of us would probably agree, and probably most of you, it's like, well, why wouldn't you do that? And I think that's the question that we're answering too, is that, well, why not? Let's make this become the standard and not just the exception. But I think that's where the economy's going as well.
So I have another question for all of you, but I want to let our audience know I'm going to open it up after this question. So we'll probably have time for one or two more from the audience. So be thinking of yours. Our next question is, what are the opportunities that you see emerging in the social impact sector? Steve, you look ready.
I was like, which end is it going to start on? So I see a lot of opportunity, and the things that we've talked about up here is really a sort of a new wave that's coming through, and I think that wave is led by information, and as more information gets out about like the space I'm playing in right now, social media and things like that, it was through liberating that information and people suddenly understanding how their data is being used, and that free is not necessarily free. It's once we're educated about those sort of things, it creates opportunities. And I agree with what everybody's saying, that the opportunities are only going to get bigger and stronger and more important. And I don't think that's limited to any one sector of the environment or the work environment or any one industry.
Yeah, we see it every day. We're in an age of conscious capitalism. People are voting with their dollars. Folks have the opportunity to buy something at REI, buy something online, backcountry.com. I mean, there's a ton of competitors in our space. But we see that on a daily basis, people are coming in there and voting for us, voting for the community store, voting for someone that stands with a nonprofit partner for something that's a little bit higher, bigger than ourselves, outside of ourselves. And so folks that are coming into this space really have a chance to set themselves apart from kind of the traditional model that we've seen for so many years. You look at some of the older systematic giants. I can't imagine seeing like U.S. Bank or something say, hey, congratulations, you're just closing that mortgage. Now 50% of that sale is going to go to nonprofit of your choice. That's not going to happen. But it's those new kind of industry shakers that are coming up and coming into this new space that I think really have an opportunity to connect with the millennials. But I think not just the millennials. I think there's a greater conscious, there's a greater change, I think, in the consumer space right now than I've ever seen before. So yeah, it's an exciting opportunity, exciting time.
Well, if I could just add to that, because I think Jake's spot on, that's the biggest opportunity, is that it's all of you as consumers. This is an age where consumers have now the most power they've ever had before. Usually it was in the hands of businesses. Businesses had the most power. Now it's shifted to consumers. And businesses that don't figure that out are going to go out of business. But the ones that are really savvy and understand that are listening to consumers, because we have data, we have the internet, we have social media, all of these tools kind of in our hands. But I think that is the biggest opportunity, is that, there is a shift right now. And millennials are kind of leading the charge, but I mean, the average American is right there behind them. But millennial shoppers, and that's where, again, now as of this year, they are the largest, they have the most buying power of any generation. And so companies are paying attention to what they want. And millennials want to know what the social impact is, what the environmental piece is, how was it made, how was it sourced, was it ethical or not. Yeah, we'll come to the price. Price is important, but just to play in this game, in this age of Amazon, you've got to have a good price and a good quality product just to show up on the website. So kind of move that aside, check. Okay, what are you really doing? What's your why? And so businesses are paying attention to that. I think the other thing that's a huge opportunity is that the opportunity to have this conversation. My ask for all of you, and I'm sure everybody up here would do the same thing, is not necessarily to talk about what our individual businesses are doing, but the industry as a whole, going out in the community and telling people that there is this new sector of the economy, and it's creating all kinds of value, and it's doing some wonderful things. I think the opportunity we have is that this becomes a household name. As social impact, social enterprise, conscious capitalism, social business, all those things become a household name. It'll bring more of a consciousness to what this is and give it a face and a name, so the consumers are even more impassioned to go out there and spend their money. Because you're right, people vote with their wallet. And if they don't know that a business is doing bad things, they keep buying from them, that's not good. But more and more people are able to find the data easier, and they're going to go invest in it. And the last opportunity, I think, is these businesses are more and more successful. Impact investors are investing in them. So capital for any business is hard to come by. This is a new sector. It's hard to come by, maybe even harder. But the capital is coming too. People want to invest with just, hey, I'll go buy your product, or they want to invest as I want to invest in your company. So I think there's going to be more and more and more capital coming to the sector as more and more people are excited about it, but see that it generates money and it creates value and solves social issues. And so again, it's a win-win-win. So I think more money is coming as well.
Yeah, just on that topic as well, Austin just got their first social impact accelerator as part of the TechStars program. And so to your point, this is the industry speaking, not only from an investor standpoint, but from the startup accelerator perspective as well. And that's a national group.
Yep, that's cool.
I'd say two opportunities I see. One, helping both nonprofits and for-profits transition to a more social business model. If you run a nonprofit or you run a for-profit and you can figure out a way to make that a more holistic business model, that's an opportunity. I think there's a time frame where you probably want to do that if you can. The other one is there's a lot of things that every American buys that have very negative impacts on the world. Cell phones, wedding rings, clothing. All those things are linked to slavery and suffering all over this world. If you can build a business model that provides cell phones, wedding rings, and clothes that doesn't require death and slavery the world over, people would buy it. So, opportunity I see. I'd love to buy a smartphone that wasn't mined by a 5-year-old in Africa.
Jake, I want to use your example of U.S. Bank really quickly too. So outside the social impact sector, and very much something that built up to the social impact sector, is this thing called corporate social responsibility, so CSR. It's been around since the 60s. U.S. Bank specifically has a CSR report that they publish every year. And so while they're not sitting squarely in this sector, we know very, very confidently that they didn't start to necessarily be a social impact business. Look beyond the veil of those companies. Tell them that you appreciate that they're making those efforts. Tell them that you want them to do more in their community. Look for those opportunities to push them beyond what the status quo is, because those existing businesses changing their business model is going to make our community better as well. There's a lot of opportunity for conversion within this sector, and there's a lot of really big companies that it is going to take them longer to turn the ship, that really have the right idea. They just need the reinforcement from us as consumers to tell them to keep moving in that direction. So Dennis, if you have a question, if you want to take the mic. Oh, yeah, if you'll, I wasn't looking at hands, just step up to the mic.
Well, I almost just had a question. I think maybe you kind of explained it. Look, my daughter is a vice president at Comcast, and her team, Comcast is consistently, you don't have to be out in the community very much to see Comcast signs that are promoting things that are happening, the money that's being given, because there's a lot of money to give, obviously. I think some confusion in the public at large is that, okay, a Comcast or a top 50, a Fortune 50 company, gives a lot of money every year to a lot of different causes. Is that social impact or not? Or does the social impact involve wrapping around local businesses and things that we can measure from a local standpoint? Is there a difference there because there's some of the same outcomes, maybe not some of the same motivations? So help us understand why a big company that's giving lots of money is not being socially impactful, but Ma and Pa that's giving $1,000 a year are.
Can I grab that?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so let's say you were gonna clean your house. You could clean one room, and you could take lots of pictures. You could put the pictures on Airbnb and say, hey, come rent my house. My house is beautiful, right? But the rest of your house is a mess. It's not about what you do, it's how you do what you do. You know, Comcast might be giving money away, but how are they running their business? What's their business model? What drives their business? Why are they doing business? Like Jonathan said, probably the best advice I ever got from Mentor about business was, business is not about making money. Money is the result of good business. It's not the goal of good business. You said that. That was the best advice I ever got from a business mentor, was that piece of advice. I think a lot of these big companies, these Fortune 50s, these Fortune 500s, the goal is still money. The culture is still money driven. I don't know, I don't work for them. It's easy for me to say that sitting in this chair. That's easy. I mean, right? They can't talk back. But the way that we see corporations, large corporations running their business, the how behind it is very different from a social business. So I think it's a culture thing, it's a people thing, it's a mindset thing. It's not a money thing. Make sense?
And I think we have great examples of large businesses that are doing, they have more rooms in the house that are clean than are not, and folks are moving toward that. But I think the opportunity that we have is to say this can be done at any level. The Institute specifically is focused on when you're living in a community and you know what's happening in your own backyard, you know the opportunities better of how to provide some additional support to that. You also know what the potential challenges are. And I think that's one of the things that when we get too far away from what we know, that our solutions to those problems maybe have some unintended consequences that we didn't necessarily see before. And so when you've got these large corporations, they're trying to solve issues on a larger scale, but if they're not focused on these community efforts and being more hyper-local, then maybe they don't have the same level of impact or level of expectation, and they don't see that impact in the same way that the mom and pop shop do. So I don't think it's about valuing one type of investment over the other. It is about culture, and it is about how you make decisions in business every single day. But it's also about how do you hold others accountable for where that money is going and support the community in a way that truly is meaningful, not just so that you can get your name on a sponsorship package.
And I think that is the definition of that, in that sense. And I think Comcast would tell you that they do practice corporate social responsibility. And, you know, all business should probably practice corporate social responsibility. It is a good thing. But I think that the social impact space and social businesses are kind of taking that CSR and they've evolved it. And they've kind of put it on steroids, right? So the way I would define it is that, you know, corporate social responsibility, that business's primary purpose, as you said, is still to make money. But we're going to market this additional piece over here because that's what you do. And that's what we do care about stakeholders and community. But the bigger question is going to be, when times get tough and the money gets tight, what's the first thing you think they're going to cut? Probably that. Whereas in a social business, that's the whole reason they exist. You can't cut it. It's in the DNA, right? It's in the very fabric of the organization. And that's why people are going to want to go work there for them, is because it's the culture, it's the leadership, it's the style, it's the belief, it's the purpose, it's baked into everything you touch. And so I think that fundamentally is, CSR is, it's still about making money. It's a marketing piece. Social impact businesses, it's built into the DNA. You can be a large company, a small company, it doesn't matter. That's the purpose, right? It's that they have a higher purpose versus just making money.
As our timekeeper today, we have time for one more question. Dennis, your hand was up next, so I'll try to honor the hands here, but if you would step up to the mic, and then.
All right, it takes me 5 minutes to even introduce a topic.
We don't have 5 minutes, Dennis.
Dennis Natale from Pikes Peak Community College, pleasure to meet you. When I'm listening to your stories and to your experiences, I am reminded of Peter Diamandis, who said, and I love his quote, he says, the world's greatest problems are the world's greatest business opportunities. And so I'm listening to how you're out there solving problems. In the past 2 weeks, the social impact area, the whole ecosystem has been growing phenomenally, especially at Pikes Peak Community College. Again, I'm not trying to plug them, I'm just trying to give you my experiences. I've met with, I had 24 students, high school students, sophomores and juniors, so they're 12, 13, 14 years old. And out of the 24, 21, after we had our presentation, want to go into social impact, and others want to go into other careers in business. So I'm just blown away at, what's going on out there, how these post-millennials ended at 2002, the post-millennials now are really involved in trying to make a difference in the community. Now I need to learn from you. What do I tell them? Everybody wants to make money, make business, do a startup and become the next Zuckerberg. But what do I tell them about how do I balance that? I mean, how do I help them solve, help the community and, make a good business? I can't find that bridge, and I need your advice to tell them. So I'm basically you're going to teach me to teach them. What do you got?
So from my perspective, it's really all about the honest conversation of your why. Why are you doing this? And I think of my generation, we jumped on a track, we went to high school, if we were fortunate enough to go to college, we got a job, we married a woman, we married up, and then we had a couple, my wife's in the audience here, so, good saying, yeah, and, we had kids and things like that, and somebody earlier talked about being in the frustrated job. That was the path I was on until I finally jumped off of it because I was so absolutely frustrated with the life I had created around this job that drove me to work too much and I didn't care about. And I jumped into something that was a passion and was important. And so I think the conversation that needs to be had is that it's not all about money. It's about purpose and, can you find something that fulfills you and makes you happy? And can you find a way to support yourself in doing that? And I think the kids going forward, my kids and the generation after them, are going to have more balance than I ever had growing up because that was never part of the equation. Happiness came from money. It didn't come from community or time with your family or purpose, feeling like you have purpose in your job.
And I would just add to that too. I mean, it goes back to well, what do you want to do, right? Why are you doing this? And if the answer is, well, I want to make money, okay. There's plenty of traditional for-profit companies. You can go work for them. But if it's, well, I want to make money, but I want to leave a legacy, well, you should probably look at this new fourth sector because you can kind of do both. And so I think for me, you got to ask them. It's like, what do you want to do? Because you have options now. Before it was one or the other. Go make money or go work for a nonprofit, have purpose, but not make a lot of money. Now there's this middle piece where you can do both, but you got to ask them what it is that you want to do. If they just want to make money, that's okay. There's plenty of other businesses out there, but this might not be necessarily the one because you got to do two things at once.
Sorry, one other thing because I feel like I had to interrupt. One of the comments that's been made here several times was that profit or money or financial gain comes out of running a well-run business. And I think that's a really important piece as well, that people can understand that, You know, like even if you jump into something that fulfills you, that doesn't mean you have to not make money. Just, you know, if you're passionate about it, you're probably a lot more likely to jump into it and do well.
Panelists, if you'll, oh, go ahead,
Sorry,
Jake.
Oh, no, yeah, I was just gonna tell, I would, my advice to them would be to join the CI for 4SI, put a sticker on their water bottle and go from there. But no, I would tell them that there is a real path ahead of them. Having experienced and run the shop down there, we've got a handful of folks that are passionate about what we do, what we're all about. And so I could see a couple of the folks that are working with us, fresh graduates, they also are on fire. They're passionate about what we're doing. And so it's coming from the practical side and actually seeing it, I could see it a true path going forward. So
I would say a few things. Definitely, CI for SI, the classes you guys do are phenomenal. If you want to learn, there isn't a better place to learn than here. You're a teacher, assign a book. The Renaissance Soul is a great book for that. It has some great practical walkthroughs for how to balance your dream with your job. It's a great book. So I would definitely recommend that book to your students. At the end of the day, I mean, my job, life coaching, is about one thing. It's helping clients figure out what the heck they want in life. You know, I can say I want to look like Thor, but when the alarm goes up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, and I hit snooze, and then when there's grilled chicken or a hamburger and I choose the hamburger and I do that every day for a month, it's not what I really wanted. What I really wanted was to sleep and eat burgers. So helping your students figure out what it is that they want, not all the things they want, the thing they really want. You help them find that, and then when they're starting their social business and they're driving a 15-year-old car and they're buying groceries with a credit card for a few years, they'll have the staying power because it's what they really want. And then 5 years down the road, when they're running a successful business and they have money in the bank, and they can look back and say, wow, yeah, that's what I really wanted. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. All right, our last question of the evening. If you could each take 1 minute and tell us what are your next steps with your social business.
All right, sure, why not? Honestly, I think it's just, it's growing. Like, I know what I want to do. We know what we want to do. We want to impact this community. I moved across the country. I packed everything I owned in the back of my 4Runner, and I drove from South Carolina to Colorado. I camped along the way in winter. It was a blast. Shower in Missouri almost killed me, but it was great. I'm here because I want to be here. I believe in what I'm doing. I have bought groceries with credit cards, right? I believe in what I'm doing. I believe on what I'm doing. I know it will work. I just want to grow it. I want to see suicide rates in the Springs drop. I want to see kids in the street who know what they're doing with their lives and why they're doing it, who have fire in their hearts and light behind their eyes. I want to see parents say, I love my kids. They're amazing. Not, oh, you know, Johnny, God. Right? Like, I want to talk to business owners who want to hire millennials, not say, I don't want a millennial, right? That's what I want. So I just want to do more of that.
Thank you. Jake?
yeah, so MER, we've been around 8 years. To date, we've helped raise almost $300,000 for local nonprofits and charities, all through gear. I mean, it's exciting. It's started by Mike Mazzola back in the day, and he ran it for 7 years. An amazing man. And my goal, my hope for MER is that we, continue to grow. We're here another 8 years, maybe another 8 years after that. The market will tell us, but where we're going to be, we're going to stay true to who we are. We're going to continue working with the community. We're going to continue to partner with local nonprofits and champion them and put them out front. Like Jonathan said, certain things get cut when some of these other businesses that are here to make money, well, that's not a part of us. If we cut out our nonprofits, we'd lose half of our inventory because that's items that have been donated to those nonprofits, and then we lose our customer base. So we are fully integrated with our nonprofit community as a for-profit business. So We are excited to continue to grow, continue to reach out, continue to get the word out. So
Nice.
Thanks, Jake.
Right, Porchlight, it's a reasonably new company, and it's only been really publicly available for about a couple months now. We did a beta launch at Arizona State. Our target market for market entry is with helping the college student situation. So kids going off to college and their parents and what we call the left behinds, their parents, their siblings, their friends, and helping them through that transition. So while Porchlight's available for everybody, and that's my shameless plug, you know, we have a couple interesting things coming up. We're launching at University of Texas at Austin this weekend, and then hope to get to a scale by the end of the year that we're able to start playing with the pay side of it. And if we can create some revenue and get additional investors next year, then we want to conquer the world.
Nice.
Cool.
Thank you, Steve.
So the BBB of Southern Colorado just received a contract from our national organization, and we partner with the Colorado Institute for Social Impact, and we also partner with the Quad Innovation Program. And what we're trying to do, what we just started, and we'll have kind of the first phase done, is we're trying to map out this sector. So one of the questions we get all the time is, this is great, this is awesome, where's the list of all these businesses, these wonderful businesses, so I can go find them and buy stuff from them? And then I got to tell people, well, it doesn't really exist. Well, it kind of exists over there, but you got to know what you're looking for. So this project is going to be, and here's the cool part, is that Colorado is going to be first. So we're going to map Colorado. We're the first state. Colorado Springs will be the first city to map this stuff out and develop kind of the algorithm to find more of these businesses. So in phase 2, after we learn from Colorado, phase 2 will be, let's go map this out in 5 to 10 other cities. And then phase 3 will be, let's roll this out for the entire nation, so that we can help to promote these businesses and tell the story and get people to find them easily, right? Because you got to kind of self-identify until consumers understand more what this is. So we'll have that information, kind of the first round, the first draft done at the end of December. So in January, we'll start talking more about that, and then hopefully go on to round 2 and then finally round 3. So hopefully we can map the sector out, but Colorado gets to be first on this, which is cool.
nice.
Nice.
Thanks, Jonathan. As for what's next for the Institute, you heard our classes mentioned a couple different times. We have Telling Your Social Impact Story coming up next week. We have Funding Your Social Impact Business still to come. Ready, Set, Impact, which is about organizational leadership. And networking, we have the Ethics of Social Impact. All of those courses left this year. We have networking events, and just on the other side of the holidays, because those will be here before we know it, we will start recruiting nominations for our PRISM Awards, which will actually be statewide this year, and so we're super excited about that. So keep in mind those companies that you love and support and that do so much of the important work that you got to hear about these folks doing today. Thank you for joining us. One more thank you for our panelists, and a thank you to Steve Weed Media for doing our video tonight. Have a good night.